due to the COVID-19 situation and the limits to gatherings put in place by the federal and state government. This has included receiving written deputations and receiving public questions for the meeting in writing only prior to the meeting. Some of our councillors are participating via electronic means, and so although you cannot see them in the chamber, they are considered to be present at this meeting. We have made some arrangements to try and have them heard via our live stream, but cannot guarantee that that will occur. Other parts of our meeting procedures may also be modified to ensure the meeting is conducted in an effective and efficient manner and deal with our business in a timely manner. Councillors, tonight is an important meeting for the City of Swan, and I really want to reiterate that point right from the beginning. Tonight we will consider, based on the reports, evidence and fact, the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic on our budget. Many ratepayers have asked us to consider rates relief, and tonight we have the opportunity to do that. The City of Swan is ahead of the game. We've been managing the immediate need of our community by facilitating food, water and other assistance to the most vulnerable people in our region. The number of confirmed COVID-19 cases within the City of Swan remains at less than 15, compared to our neighbouring councillors of Wanneroo, Joondalup and Stirling, which each have in the vicinity of 40. Councillors, tonight we can consider the economic opportunities we can create to boost our local community, to build a stronger community and create local jobs. We all know that the best form of assistance is a job. The projects the City of Swan undertakes creates jobs and provides direct investment in our local community. The City has been diligently managing our finances in a period of sustained growth and additional development. We've been delivering and planning infrastructure projects for many years. Most of those projects have a reserve account, and I want to make it clear to those watching at home that a reserve account operates something like a trust fund. Those dollars can only be spent on the project specified because the money is typically from a government grant or from developer contributions. This cash is not accessible for any other purpose, and we understand the term reserve can be confusing in this instance. Balancing a budget in these times is going to be difficult, and aware that the City will be taking a hit. But also it is down to us to ensure that we support the state government and our community. The Minister for Local Government has told us that we must not increase fees and charges, freeze rates, provide rent relief or waive rental income, retain staff and increase spending on infrastructure. We are also ineligible for the federal government's JobKeeper program. So anyone who understands how local governments are funded will see there are some significant financial repercussions for these directions. With that in mind, tonight we'll be deciding on some well-considered concepts developed by the City staff to provide manageable and a sensible response to the current economic climate. Councillors, please remember that we only have 2 hours to get through all of this tonight, and I ask that comments and debate, if required, be on point and focused on the issue at hand. Tonight we need to make a cohesive Tonight we need to move as a cohesive, representative body to make good decisions for our community. We will look back on this period in history and reflect on the debate tonight. Let's raise the tone, work together and ensure that our community and the City of Swan comes through this pandemic in the best possible footing. Remember, we are all in this together. Disclaimer: the City of Swan disclaims any liability for any loss arising from any person or body relying on any statement, discussion and recommendation or decision made during this meeting. Where an application for an approval, a licence or the like is considered or determined during the meeting, the City warns that neither the applicant nor any other person or body should rely upon the discussion or determination until a written notice of either an approval and the conditions of which relate to it or the refusal of the application has been issued by the City. Please note that this meeting is being live streamed. The recording will also be archived and made available on the City's website after the meeting. Attendances and apologies, Mr CEO.
Everyone is present.
Everyone is present. For those watching, Councillors Podovnik, Scanlon and Richardson have been approved to participate in this meeting via electronic means. Public question time. 5.1, questions relating to reports on the agenda. 5.11, questions for which due notice has not been given. I have one from Mr James Pollard. This question has been answered. Item 5.1.2, questions for which due notice has not been given. I have nil. I have a procedural motion at this point in time from Councillor Johnson. Councillor Johnson, you requested if I allowed this to be considered this meeting, and I returned a response to that. Given that we'd considered these items last week, the opportunity was there to debate, move amendments to defer it. We'll take your motion and a seconder and then go straight to the vote. So if you would just proceed with your motion, please.
Yeah, Mr Mayor, my motion is that Council resolve to resume the sections of the City of Swan Meeting Procedures Local Law that was suspended in the OCM on 8th of April. To note that the Council has the authority under Section 11 of the Meeting Procedures Local Law to suspend the local law, but it does not have authority, even in an emergency, to add additional criteria or change the Meeting Procedures Local Law without first advertising for 6 weeks for public submissions as required in the Local Government Act Section 3.12. 3. To note that electronic meetings are now permitted during an emergency as a result of recent changes to the Local Government Act administration regulations. 4. To suspend the following sections of the Meeting Procedures Local Law in line with the suggestions made by WOLGA in their Guide for Electronic Council Meetings. 2.5b, petitions. 2.6, deputations. 4.1, members to occupy their own seat. 5. The reasons for the motion are: A. The suspension of the section of the Meeting Procedures Local Law on 8th of April went well beyond that recommended by WOLGA or the Department of Local Government. B. The changes made at the previous meeting have resulted in an unworkable Meeting Procedure Local Law. C. The Emergency Management Act does not recommend such changes. D. The State Government has not recommended such changes, and our community expect that Council will continue to function despite the emergency. E. It is unlawful to add to the Meeting Procedures Local Law without following Section 3.12 of the Local Government Act, even in an emergency. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Colley, your seconder?
Yes.
Okay, councillors, as previous discussion, I put that straight to vote. Those in favour? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so what's that? 6, 9, was it? Those against? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9, 6. Do you want the names of those that are in favour?
Yes, thank you.
Councillor, Councillor Favour, just raise your hand. Councillor Johnson, Councillor Kiley, Councillor Catalano, Councillor Richardson, Councillor Scanlon and Councillor Podovnik. Thank you. Go now to deputations. There are written deputations, councillors, from Mr. on COVID-19 delegations, which is on page 26. They are from Mr. Robert Lyons against the recommendation, Mr. Craig Hollett against the recommendation, and Ms Anne Sybil from the Bullsbrook Resident Ratepayers Association against the recommendation. They've all seen those, councillors, I would assume. Section 8 is members' questions. Questions for which due notice has been given. Councillor, there's a number of questions there from Councillor Johnson. Councillor Johnson, to receive those answers.
Yes.
Thank you. 8.2, questions for which due notice has not been given. Any members' questions which due notice has not been given? Councillor Henderson.
More of a procedural. Could I ask that the remote councillors and staff mute their microphones, such only to unmute when they need it?
I don't think they can because they're operating on a mobile phone. Okay.
Question, Mr Mayor?
Councillor Johnson.
Yeah, can I withdraw item 5, commencement time of council meetings? Thank you.
Okay, we'll have to deal with that because that's the only one that hasn't got, so we'll have to deal with it anyway. So that's fine. Okay, councillors, that takes us to part B, And item 1 is the city response to COVID-19. A proposed motion from Councillor Parry.
Question, Mayor. I'd like to move or have Council consider considering each of those 15 items individually, rather than as one.
Okay.
I'll second that, Mr Mayor.
So I move in a second to consider all of those items, councillors, independently. Is there anyone against? There is. Councillors, do we want to debate or just move on, because we do have only 2 hours to get through all this?
I'd like to have a quick word about it, Mayor, if that's all right.
Okay, quick word.
Councillors, there's a number of good recommendations from 3 councillors in respect to this motion as a whole. I personally have an alternate to item 1 on that list. I think Councillor Parry has one in relation to item 3 and 4 and 14, and Councillor Pridovnik has an item in relation to 4. So we wouldn't actually be arguing all of these issues. It would be just presenting the pros and cons for 1, 3 and 4, and then I think the rest would pass through unopposed. Or there are some slight changes to 6 and 8 under Councillor Parry, but so not all of them would be argued. It wouldn't take long. I think we could move fairly quickly through this.
Next speaker, second.
Wasn't me, Mr Mayor.
You sounded very good there, Councillor Johnson. I didn't understand a word you said.
Nothing to add to that, Mr Mayor.
Okay. Any speakers against? Decline to send. Okay. If there's no one against, councillors, we can put that straight to the vote. Those in favour?
Sorry, I didn't hear that. Can someone please repeat what the Mayor just said?
Okay.
Sorry?
There's no speakers against the motion, so we're going straight to the vote. So those in favour of Councillor Kiley's motion?
Okay.
I've got Councillor Johnson, Councillor Kiley, Councillor Catalano, Councillor Richardson, Scanlon and Pridovnik. Those against? Are the remainder? So, Councillor Parry.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll just read the points I've changed. So, number 3, approve in principle the suspension of debt recovery for rates and other debt owed to the city for ratepayers, community groups and businesses that are adversely affected by COVID-19 for a period of 6 months following the standing down of the state of emergency declaration. Point 4, provide rate relief through flexible payment options and review of the extreme financial hardship guideline and present that review to May or June ordinary meeting of council. Number 8, provide a maximum 6-month freeze on lease payments for commercial leases subject to application for rent relief that can demonstrate financial hardship as a result of COVID-19 and place a moratorium on evictions during this time, bar for willful misconduct subject to state of emergency. Number 11, provide an economic stimulus package noting the financial implication of this package will be implemented within the overall balancing of the budget and then in relation to the stimulus package. Point 14, requests the CEO to write to the State Treasurer to provide the City of Swan a 5-year interest-free loan for the amount of $25 million that are required as a result of responding and recovering from COVID-19. Number 15, record the reason for changing the officer's recommendation is to provide further relief for the community and businesses throughout the state of emergency and position the City of Swan to recover in a timely manner.
Okay, I have a seconder. Councillor Congdon. Is there anyone against?
I've got an amendment, Amanda. Can I propose an amendment?
Yes, you can.
Great. I'm just, if Councillor Parry will accept amendment on 4, which is very similar to what Councillor Parry has proposed. What I'm asking, though, is to include, to provide rate relief through flexible payment options and review the extreme financial hardship guideline and Walga's financial hardship COVID-19 template for the purpose of creating a City of Swan COVID-19 financial hardship policy to govern debt recovery during the state of emergency. The COVID-19 policy is to include payment arrangements and debt recovery and be presented at the May or June ordinary meeting of council. So similar, but just really making a point of putting it into a policy. Is that acceptable to Councillor Perry?
Councillor Parry?
It's not acceptable to the mover, Mr Mayor.
It is or isn't?
It's not. It's
not?
not acceptable
Okay.
to the mover.
Okay. Do I have a seconder for the amendment? Councillor Catalano. Is there anyone against
Sorry,
the
I
amendment?
can't hear it. Sorry. What did
Okay, I
Councillor
just
Perry
asked.
say?
I just
Sorry.
asked if there was a seconder to your amendment, and there is.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So what was Councillor Parry's response? I didn't hear Councillor
No,
Parry.
he
No.
wasn't accepting of your amendment. So hence, I've called for a seconder
No
to your
worries.
amendment. There are
Okay.
councillors against the amendment. So, Councillor Brodovnik, if you'd like to open the debate on your amendment, please.
Sure. So COVID-19 is expected to push our rates debt past the $15 million mark. Yet to date, the City of Swan does not have a rates debt collection policy to guide and govern this complex and diverse area. What the City does follow is provisions in the Local Government Act, but the Act merely provides a framework, a skeleton. A policy will put meat on the bone. Currently, we do have guidelines. The City's extreme financial hardship guidelines were adopted by Council on the 5th of July 2019. So, how many ratepayers have benefited from these guidelines since they were adopted almost 3 years ago? As at February this year, the total number was 2. So on one hand, we have ratepayers behind in their rates to the tune of $12.4 million as at June 2019. And on the other hand, only 2 people have benefited from our financial hardship guidelines. I ask Council, what's wrong with that picture? Today I'm asking Council to support my amendment for us to sit together, work together and create a policy that is best practice. There's some great ideas outlined in the report to Council in the City's response to COVID, but a policy means the creation of a document that looks at the whole picture. It aims to cater for the diverse needs of our ratepayers during this extraordinary time. What I'm asking Council to do is not just adopt piecemeal provisions. I'm asking Council to fully consider the whole picture and how these recommendations in the report to Council fit within that picture, and for Council to consider the full picture when we look at giving our ratepayers the best support we can. Wagga has created a template. We can tailor it to fit our ratepayers, and my motion asks Council to do just that. There's a lot of experience in the room and a lot of expertise, and if we sit down together, we can create real support for our ratepayers. I ask you to please support this amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Brodovnik. Councillor Catalano as the seconder.
Nothing further to add, thank you.
Okay. Councillor Parry, speak. Yeah, Councillor Parry, speak against the motion, Councillor.
Nothing to say, Mr Mayor.
Nothing. Any speakers against the amendment? Any further speakers for the amendment? Councillor Kiley.
I'd just like to quickly say I support Councillor Prodovnik's amendment to the motion. I think it, as she said, puts meat on the bones of an actual policy and puts us in line with Wagga and what other councils are doing across the state. So I think it just goes a little bit further, and agree that it's very similar to what Councillor Parry is putting forward, but it actually just provides a little bit of a framework for that to occur. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kiley. Any further speakers for or against the motion? You no further speakers. Councillor Prodovnik, your right of reply. You have 3 minutes.
No, it's fine. I've got no right of
No wish to
reply, so we're
speak?
just moving this along. It's a long meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Prodovnik. In that case, councillors, I'll put the vote. Those in favour of the amendment? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There are 6. Those against? Oh, sorry. Wait. 6. We're right. Hands up again, guys, on the screen. 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so it's 9 in favour. 6 against. Against easy as myself, Councillor McNamara, Councillor Jones.
Councillor McNamara.
Sorry, Councillor Jones. Okay, so it's Councillor Parry, Councillor Congerton, Councillor McCulloch, Councillor Jones, myself, and Councillor Henderson. Okay, so that now becomes part of the substantive motion, councillors.
Thank you.
We have a mover and a seconder. Is there anyone against the substantive motion?
An amendment, Mr Mayor?
A further amendment?
Yes, my amendment would be found on page 12 in place of point 1 of. So instead of the annual budget to be based on a 0% rise, my amendment would be to approve the draft 2021 annual budget to be based on a 2% reduction in total rate revenue for the same base rate for the 2021, reflecting a 2% reduction in total rate revenue raised in 1920, and consider the loan borrowings to fund consider the use of loan borrowings to fund the reduction in rate revenue as part of developing the draft 2021 annual budget. Do I need a reason for the amendment? I don't think I do.
Yep.
I do. The reason for the amendment would be a reduction in rates by 2% is highly achievable and is appropriate given the current circumstances.
Thank you, Councillor Kiley. Do I have? Is that acceptable to move the substantial motion?
No, it's not, Mr Mayor.
No. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Johnson, I'll take you as a seconder. Anyone against? Obviously, Councillor Parry. Councillor Kiley.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, on the way here I saw a disturbing sight on the end of Morrison Road where it abuts in Great Eastern Highway. There was a man standing on the middle of the road with a sign, work needed, I have no money. And that was quite disturbing to me, and I want to ensure that we do everything possible to ensure things like that don't occur or are unlikely to occur in the future going forward through this crisis. It was a bit of a shock and very surprising just as I arrived at council. I would think that a 2% reduction in rates is a prudent approach to this COVID crisis. I think it would inject money into the local economy and stimulate the local economy and give the ratepayer in the area a signal, basically. I know it might not be enough, but it certainly goes a long way further than just a 0% increase. A 0% increase is essentially saying to the community, it's business as usual. We haven't changed from what we were doing last year. So nothing's changed because we're giving you a no change in your rates. Well, councillors, things have changed vastly, and we need to look at how we can support the ratepayer. We may, over coming years, have to even reduce the rates further. I'm not sure, but we certainly have the capability of putting up the rates in future years. We have, if we take a negative rate reduction now, here we have the ability to get that back in the future. But if we are going to be hurting our local ratepayers, then that is not, in the short term, that is not in anybody's interest. We have the ability now to take the reduction and get it back in the future if things turn out well for the community. But they need to be given a signal by this council that we care about what their position is. On ABC Radio this afternoon, Elise Morgan from the ABC talked about the Westpac Consumer Sentiment Index, and it showed a sharpest decline in 47 years of that consumer index sentiment survey. Bill Evans, the chief Westpac economist, talked about the housing confidence collapsing, and that 26.6% of surveyed respondents said that when they were asked the question, there was a fall in the question, is this a good time to buy a property? So 26.6% of respondents said no, it's not a good time to buy a property. They are expecting a fall in property prices by 10% by the end of the year, and that might not be the end of it. Now, I don't want to be a doomsayer, but I think we have to be conscious of the fact that things could get quite bad out there for the economy, and we need to help the ratepayers that live in the city of Swan. Now, 2% might not go a long way, but it certainly goes some of the way to show that we care about our ratepayers and we can afford it. Councillors, we were looking at a 0% rate modelling going into this budget prior to the COVID crisis. We were already looking at it. So I'm asking you to really consider how much of the extra mile are we going to actually help our ratepayers. My amendment to offer a negative 2% is something that we can get back. But if we impose a 0% rate, we are saying that it's business as usual, that we recognise that you haven't lost your jobs, and we recognise that your property prices have stayed the same. We need to say to people, we recognise that some people are hurting in the community, we need to offer some help. Please support this amendment. I think it's achievable, and as I said, we can get this money back in future years. But we can't change the rate that we go into if we go in at 0%. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kiley. Councillor Johnson is the seconder.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just want to ask some questions first of all. Is my understanding correct that 2% reduction in rates would be about a $2 million reduction in the total revenue that we receive?
think it's a bit high, Mr Mayor. 2.6.
2.6.
2.6.
And I'm also guessing at what the average rateable rates are that a residential ratepayer is paying. So that would save them about, would 2% save about $40 a year? I'm assuming $2,000 is about an average rate, and
Probably more in around, depends where you'd be, around between a 13 to 16.
about that. So maybe $40 to $50. And I guess the other question is, I think our budget is about $210 million. No?
Just under 200.
Just under 200. And I guess we're going to be getting a lot less money in fees and charges. So that's going to be an impact as well.
Yes.
Okay. Look, it would be asking too much to ask the staff on the fly to work out whether this is going to impact our, I can't remember the ratio, but the financial ratio that indicates whether our rates are sufficiently, income is sufficiently covering our interest rates. But this is only an addition to the draft annual budget. We're not making a commitment to this point, but of course by broadcasting it over live streaming, we are more or less saying to people that we would be doing this. Councillors, given the impact to COVID-19 on our budget, I do believe we can actually afford a $2 million reduction in rates revenue.
2.6.
$2.6 million reduction in rates revenue. There's an echo. So, councillors, as Councillor Carley said, this would send an absolutely marvellous signal to the community that we're meaning business and that we're going to do some belt tightening. And, councillors, we can borrow money. So we can borrow money at the state government rate. And how much better it would be for us at this time to borrow money and use our reserves in order to reduce bills. So, councillors, I think it is a fairly reasonable and sensible thing to do at this time. It puts money back into the economy. And I've heard many people tell me how difficult the difficult times they have balancing their budget in normal times, and yet with this situation that we're facing right now, I think we should do everything we can. So, councillors, it's affordable, and it's a meaningful financial contribution to the community. So, councillors, I'd urge you to support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Speaking against the amendment, Councillor Parry.
I have an objection to this because of the fact that we just... Sorry. Okay, sorry. I just have an objection to this because we just don't know where we're going to land in regards to this. That's the whole problem, because it could be 0%, it could be 2%, it could be 10%. We just don't know. We don't know what the assumption is. We've got to base our information on a draft budget of 0, then work our way towards it. We've got to protect the most vulnerable people in our community. We don't live in Applecross. We don't live in the rich suburbs. I live in Balladroo, one of the highest mortgage delinquency rates in Australia. We talk here about homeless issues all the time and all these other issues. We need to provide something to the community, to the most vulnerable in the community. We've got to at least look at it from a 0 perspective. And yes, don't get me wrong, I love to see 2% decrease, 5% decrease, everything else like that. But let's look after the most vulnerable people right now, ladies and gentlemen, councillors. That's the most important issue. Look after the elderly, look after the homeless, look after all these people that can't look after themselves right now. That's all I'm asking. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Parry. Speaker for the motion. I think Councillor Scanlon might have had her hand up. Councillor?
Yes, I did. Thank you, Mr Mayor. I just wanted to ask a question for the staff through you, please.
Yes.
I'd just like to ask, is this achievable, and how would the staff manage this?
Ms Lay, are you online? Do you wish to answer that one?
Question. Yes, I am. Yep. Thank you, Mr Mayor. As per the report, the current draft budget has a deficit in the order of $15 million. We are seeking in-principle support from the Council to look at using borrowings and use of reserves to actually balance the budget. By backing out an additional $2.6 million in revenue is just adding to the problem that we need to address in balancing the budget.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Catalani wishes to speak in favour of the motion.
Oh, yes, thank you. I just want to put it out there that $2.6 million spent in the local economy is actually quite a substantial boost. And if we're talking about, you know, a figure of $40 or $50 for every rate-paying household, that is likely to go into the cups of coffees, the little bit of retail, maybe a takeaway. They're the kind of things that are going to support the local economy. That's for the ratepayers that can afford to pay their rates. So I think, and then for the ratepayers that are having difficulty, struggling to pay their rates because, you know, they might not have a job or they've got, you know, they might have reduced hours. The $50 will come in handy towards paying the rates so that we can provide the services. Well, to actually paying the rates, yes, in full. So I think that the $2.6 million is going to be a boost to the local economy, and I think that we should support it.
Right. Thank you, Councillor Catalano. Councillor, we just have an issue with this microphone causing feedback and screeching. So we're going to have to just turn that off. So it's going to be very, very difficult for the people live streaming to hear those guys online, but they were having issues with the screeching and screaming anyway, providing feedback. So unfortunately, councillors. Okay, a speaker against the amendment. Councillor Congerton.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, councillors, this is in relation to a presentation to the draft budget, and I know we always talk about how we go with a draft budget, but I'd just like to probably talk about the average of about $36 a year that we're talking about in year one. It's all right to say we'll take $36 off and give it to you and it's going to be spent in the community. We don't know where it's going to be spent. It could be spent at the greengrocers and not the cups of coffee and not the takeaway as suggested. The federal government also put in the job seeker program of $1,500 a fortnight, and the government also put in the other conditional amount of money for those who are on job search. So there's all these other mechanisms being put in place. We, in fact, through this process tonight, are looking at freezing rates and adding a considerable amount of money to the economy to increase jobs for people to work, which is really where we need to be. And if you're talking about a difference of $15 million trying to balance at the bottom of the line now, we now go to $17.5 million trying to get it at the bottom. I think we should move on with what we've got when we get to the draft budget concession, see exactly what the bottom line is. You've got to remember, if we're going to borrow money, whatever level it is, we have to pay it back. And if we're borrowing $2 million or $3 million or $4 million and we have to pay it back, capital interest at 2%, I would suggest. Moving forward, we're giving away to take back to and giving it back to the community again in terms of a borrowing component. So I can't, whilst I think it's a very good idea, generous idea of 2%, I don't think 2% is going to cause people in the community that much of a hardship if it's not accepted. But it might be, if we're looking at the bottom line changing dramatically on capital works and job creation, that might be where the critical part is.
Thank you, Councillor Congdon. Further speaker for the motion? Any speakers for or against the motion? Councillor Lucas.
Thank you, as briefly as I can. Just like the state government has put a freeze on rent, the Premier was quite clear, that doesn't mean you stop paying rent, and there's other issues. But I think that if we can put a 0% rate rise this year, I don't want the city to have to borrow money and then get our ratepayers as Councillor Kiley said, they have to pay it back in future years. I'd rather wait and see and be a bit more prudent, and hopefully we can achieve more local economic stimulus by having a 0% rate rise, which is unprecedented in any event. And I also saw the man standing at the corner of Morrison and Great Eastern Highway. The sign actually said, "No money, I work cheap." It had an impact on me, so I drove around the block and I gave him a cash donation and said, "Go and buy yourself a couple of good meals." So people are doing it tough out there, but he thanked me, and I didn't have any work for him to do, otherwise I would have given him a card and got him to come and do some work. But I think, and that's one of the reasons why I supported Councillor Prodovnik's alternative motion for item 4, is that we're looking at a policy of looking at how people can pay off their rates over an extended period of time through the different payment arrangements, and to look at a policy for financial hardship. So I think 0% is the way to go at this stage. I think 2% would be detrimental in the long run for our own residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lucas. Okay, any further speakers for or against? Councillor Henderson.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, as you well know, for the last 4 years I've been fighting tooth and nail for a no rate rise for the city, and I felt at those times, in good times, we could have actually afforded it. Here we are in really bad times, and they really are bad times, and I'm really pleased to see that the council is bending over backwards to get to a 0 rise. The point I will make is that I've heard rate figures of the order of plus 20%. Now I hear minus 2%. They're all over the place. That concerns me. But here's the thing. I don't think the City of Swan has ever, I think Councillor Lucas said unprecedented, I don't think we've ever seen a 0 rise. The point is that we get this next year at 0. The following year, let's say inflation skyrockets, which it could very well do as a result of all this, we might see 3, 4, even 5% rise necessary. If you then add on top of that the repayments of the debt for the next 5 years, you'll probably see as much as another 2 or 3% on top of that each year. So if we go down 2%, you've got to come back another 2, and that's really going to hurt, really, really going to hurt in the future. So as much as I would like to be able to say that this is a great idea, I can't, because frankly I don't think the ratepayers in the future will be able to afford it, and what we're doing now is the best we can do to help the ratepayers. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson. Any other speakers? Councillors, I'll very quickly speak to this one. I want to just do a little bit of a case scenario of the 2.6 million or thereabouts. On an individual ratepayer basis, we already know that it's not going to be a lot of money. But when you put it in a pot that represents 2.6 million, that's a little handy project somewhere within the City of Swan. It might be a playground or some other infrastructure that we're going to build. Bear in mind, of that 2.6 million, there's going to be quite a few thousands of dollars spent on wages for those people to do that product and build that project. That money then is spent within our community, which goes to benefit someone else in our community. And what you have then is the circulation of money within our community to the tune of 2.6 million. Who knows? Out of that, old mate on the corner up there looking for one might end up a job on that project. So when you consider what we can do with that 2.6 million and the direct effect that it has on those people that can be involved in that infrastructure, it's a far greater effect than is going to be than a $30, $40 for our ratepayers. So consider that, councillors, the benefit that will have within our circular economy. Thank you, councillors, on that. Councillor Kiley, you close the debate, please.
Thank you, Mayor, and I'll sit if you don't mind. I'll in reference to what the Mayor just said in terms of $2.6 million going into a playground and being circulated in the economy, that's a good argument. But however, I believe that if we give it to the ratepayers to decide how they're going to spend that, that's relief for everybody and not necessarily somebody who just makes a playground or does some infrastructure works within the city. We are going to undertake the capital works and the stimulus injection into the economy, I believe, tonight. We'll make a decision in regards to that, and that work will continue. I'm asking that Council consider borrowing an extra $2.6 million to give back to the ratepayer, and this might be only $30, $40 per ratepayer, but it is a signal to the ratepayers in the City of the Swan that we actually care about their position. It's a signal that living in the City of Swan is the right place for them at the moment, and where they can ride out this storm, if you want to call it that. Freezing rates. It's not business as usual, councillors. That you'll be asking the ratepayers to pay the same as they did last year. The federal government's putting $130 billion into this economy, and all I'm asking is that you look at another $2.6 million into our budget. $130 billion from the federal government versus $2.6 million. It's not a lot of money, but it does send a good signal. It'll warm the hearts of the ratepayers out there. When they see this tonight or hear about it, that our rates are coming down, at least they can walk in the front door and say, I've got some good news at least today. Some good news when they go home. It is prudent. It's appropriate for the current times. Councillor Parry said that we don't know where we are going to land at the end of this. Well, I'm sorry, but individuals, when they go home every day or go to work every day at the moment, don't know where they're going to land when they come out of this. So this is sending a signal that we as a council care. The arguments being put by Councillor Parry and everybody else are quite relevant and justified in what they say, but I think this is just another justification. My argument is just as well supported. So I encourage you to go to the $2.6 million or the 2% rate reduction. If you think that ratepayers watching this will be
30 seconds, Councillor.
Heartened by the fact that we are even discussing it, and I think they will. They'll be glad that we are even discussing this. Now, if you think they'll be happy that we're discussing this, then they will be happy, even more happy, that we will give them that 2% rate reduction. So I encourage you to support this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Coley. Councillors, those in favour of the amendment? One, two, three, four, five.
Six.
And six.
Six.
Okay. No, seven. Okay. Those against? Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 7, 8. Those in favour were Councillor Henderson, Councillor Zanino, Councillor Lucas, myself.
No, other
way around. Councillor Congleton, Councillor Parry, Councillor McCulloch and Councillor Jones. Right, we're against. Okay, so the amendment is lost, so we now go back to the substantive motion. We have a mover and a seconder. Is there anyone against the substantive motion? There is. You don't wish to argue it? Okay. Okay, councillors, in that case we'll put it straight to the vote. Those in favour of the motion as amended? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Those against is
14, 1 against.
Did I see Councillor Richardson vote? Okay, my apologies, it's a bit far away. Okay, and the one against was Councillor Kiley. Thank you, councillors. Okay, that takes us now to item 2, which is COVID-19 delegations and a proposed motion from Councillor Johnson.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've got a slight modification to the first line. My motion is that Council resolve to adopt the following delegations for a period of 3 months, and here's where the change starts, or when the emergency ends, whichever is sooner, concluding Friday the 17th of July 2020. I guess that.
Or Friday?
Yeah. I'll just read that again. Adopt the following delegations for a period of 3 months, concluding Friday the 17th of July 2020, or when the emergency ends, whichever is sooner.
So you're taking out including Friday the 17th? Was that in?
No, it stays in, yeah.
Stays in.
Or when the emergency ends, whichever is sooner. So what I'm seeing on the screen is correct.
Okay.
1, Tenders Review Committee. 2, Expressions of Interest, Pre-Qualified Suppliers and Tenders. 2, record the reason for changing the officer's recommendation is that 6 months is an excessive time frame given the coronavirus COVID-19 current situation and case numbers as advised on the Department of Health's website. 2, it is not appropriate or necessary for Council to delegate planning matters to the CEO. And 3, it has been demonstrated on 8th of April that Council can deal with its business in 2 hours.
Seconder. Councillor Catalano. Is there anyone against? There is. Councillor Lucas. Councillor Johnson, if you'd like to open the debate.
Okay, thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, there are 2 issues here. One is a 2-hour time limit required? And 2, is it in the public interest to delegate all statutory planning authority to the CEO? Councillors, I can see there's an attempt here to protect the health of council staff and community by reducing the length of meetings. The State Emergency Coordinator and Commissioner for Police advised, as advised by the Department of Health as the Hazard Management Agency, issued a direction notice called Closure and Restriction Limit the Spread Directions on the 7th of April. This prohibits gatherings of more than 2 people where there is not at least 4 square metres per person. And that's why we have this changed layout in the council chamber, and that's why we don't have the public present. The public are zooming in by live streaming. The closure and restriction limit the spread directions does not mention a time limit for meetings that comply with the 1 person per 4 square metre limit. If the emergency coordinator and the Department of Health thought a 2-hour limit was needed, why did they not put it in there? The State Emergency Coordinator didn't need to restrict our community more than is necessary, and that's why there's no 2-hour limit. We've been told that the document CDNA National Guidelines for Public Health Units is the source of the 2-hour limit. So the question arises, is the City of Swan a public health unit? Which is a good question. They ask, is the City of Swan a public health unit? No, it's not. We know it's not. If not, then why are we using the CDNA National Guidelines for Public Health Units? It appears that the City's relying on the CDNA Guidelines for Public Health Units Section 6 contact management to limit meetings to 2 hours. But if this section is being used, who are the confirmed or probable cases of COVID-19 among the executive management or councillors? Does anybody here have a temperature of 38 degrees and acute respiratory symptoms? I don't think so. So therefore it doesn't apply. The CDNA guidelines are used to identify contacts of suspect cases. It does not limit meetings of any sort to 2 hours. I suggest we buy a no-touch infrared thermometer to test councillors and staff, and we could ask councillors and staff to wear a mask to council meetings. Next question is it in the public interest to delegate all our statutory planning authority to the CEO? Well, in my opinion, and judging by the deputations we've received, which are in the back of the green folder, the answer is categorically no. Look, we've been told by the Mayor that state government wants to expedite planning, and yesterday we heard what the Planning Minister means by that. A range of planning application exemptions and conditions for their application prepared for the purpose of facilitating a response to or recovering from the emergency occasioned by the pandemic. So, if you want to put up a new hospital or some kind of medical facility without planning permission on Stirling Square, you can. That's what it's for. These exemptions are for planning exemptions are for temporary situations only. So brick and mortar applications are not included, and the usual approvals will need to be sought. That's what the Minister actually said. So the Planning Minister has not said we should delegate authority to our CEO or change our processes to eliminate the usual checks and balances. WALGA are not recommending that either. In fact, Mr Mayor, the state government has said we should continue with the business of government and keep making decisions. So why are we delegating our authority? Mr Mayor, how will delegating statutory planning to the CEO assist with the health of the community or protecting them from COVID-19? How will delegating statutory planning help people who have lost their jobs? Mr Mayor, the Planning Minister has got it right. We do need to exempt temporary medical facilities and food distribution centres and the like from planning red tape. Mr Mayor, the trigger for this council delegating more of its planning authority, in my opinion, should not be a virus, but officers' recommendations on planning matters that get community support because they are aligned with planning policies that have community consent. When our planning staff recommendations are unopposed by the community because they are in line with community expectations, when there are no public deputations except in support of planning recommendations, and when there is no need for alternate motions, That would be the signal that the time has come for more delegation. That time has not come yet, and it's not come right now. Councillors, we don't need to delegate our planning authority to the CEO, and I think the 4 deputations we've got here would probably be backed up by another 400 if more people knew of this. Councillors, I urge you to think carefully about this one and support my motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Councillor Catalano is the seconder.
Thank you. I'm supporting this motion because I am fundamentally opposed to the erosion of representative democracy. Elected representatives, like councillors that we are here, are a fundamental pillar of representative democracy because they check executive power. And we check executive power because we have to look our voters, the ratepayers, in the eye, and we have to be accountable to them for decisions that are made with their rates, their funds, and decisions that are made in their communities. The executive does not have to do this. Nobody on the executive will lose their job because ratepayers are unhappy about decisions that are being made in their community and with their ratepayer funds. But they can elect us as representatives, as elected representatives, out if they don't like us. That is a fundamental pillar of representative democracy, and that is what I see as being eroded by delegating our authority, and our authority is in fact our power to make decisions on behalf of those ratepayers. So elected representatives oversee the executive and the administrators. That's their function in our democracy, to avoid waste of funds and corruption and ensure that services are maintained for the ratepayers. Councillors, we're the representatives of the ratepayers. That's what we're voted in for. We speak to the ratepayers, we speak for the ratepayers who have no other recourse to ensure that their interests are acted upon by this council, by the city of Swan, this council. We're answerable and accountable to ratepayers, or else we get voted out. The executive do not. That is why the power rests with us, because we are representatives of those voters. The executive, in fact, doesn't have to make decisions that are in the best interests of ratepayers. They make decisions that are in the best interests of the corporation, which is the City of Swan. So, emergency powers, we're getting hysterical about emergency powers. I think in an emergency it's time to keep a very level head and stay calm. And stay focused and make sure you retain your democratic structures and make the right decisions. In fact, elected representatives need to have even more oversight when we're talking about huge budgets that are going to be spent at this time. We need to have our oversight and ensure that the money is going to be spent appropriately and according to what ratepayers expect and need. We are the ones who are in touch with ratepayers. We are their representatives. We're the ones that actually give their message or impart their message to the executive. We need to retain that power. That is the power we have. That's what we're voted here for. So we need to retain our authority to ensure accountability for all these huge amounts of funds, 25 million, I believe, and possibly more. And we need to ensure that we don't end up with unscrupulous people profiting from the emergency situation and from the disruption to other people's suffering. And there's plenty of carpetbaggers out there. Let's not be innocent about it. There be people out there who make money out of disruption, and we need to be overseeing that. finally, Western Australia, we don't have high virus rates here. And in fact, only yesterday, the West Australia Premier said that he's going to ease restrictions in 2 weeks' time. We don't have the crisis that they have overseas. So we need to be much more cautious in the way that we give away our power. We need to maintain our position of oversight. Ratepayers will expect no less of us. And as far as meeting alternatives go, if it's because of...
Thank you, Councillor Catalano. That's your 5 minutes. Okay. Speaker against a question to the CEO. Currently understand, Mr CEO, that all applications for development applications, which is what we're talking about here, come addressed to the CEO. What's the process for delegations and who gets them in the first instance under the Local Government Act?
Mr Mayor, all delegations under the Local Government Act are to me in the first instance. I then issue sub-delegations to staff.
Thank you, Mr CEO. Okay, any speakers against the motion? Councillor Henderson.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, there's a real big problem, in my view, with no oversight. And it is something that concerned me from the beginning that when we saw this come to us. So in that regard, I felt, and there's no aspersion on staff, by the way, but in that regard, it made me think about how we could make this work and to ensure that there is proper oversight. And on page 16, I foreshadow that I'll move that if this fails. If we ensure that the ward councillors receive the information from the CEO or his delegate, and then we're able to look at it and hear what the community says, well, then there's an opportunity for the community to discuss with their local councillors the issue and to be able to feed that back to the CEO as whether they would support it or not. So in that regard, I think that what I'm proposing in my motion would cover the necessity to have some oversight. So I feel that what I've proposed is more detailed and would cover the matter adequately. So in that regard, whilst I appreciate the idea and the tenure behind this, I won't be supporting this motion and obviously would be prepared to do my foreshadow if necessary. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson. Speaker for the motion. Councillor Kiley.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, put your hand up if you want to lose your power as a councillor. Throw your hand up in the air. Throw two up. Who wants to lose their power? Who wants to have your powers removed that you were voted in for? You were voted in by the community to support the community, to make decisions, to have oversight, to look at these sort of things. This motion, the staff recommendation, is simply about removing your powers. None of us want to do that. I can't think of any councillor here tonight that would willingly give up their power to represent their community. And it's not only your power we're giving up, it'll be the ratepayers' power. The ratepayers' ability to ring you up and say, listen, I'm not too sure about this, that effectively will be gone. Not necessarily gone at 100% because they could still ring up the CEO, but it does stop them from feeling comfortable in the associations that you've developed with people in the community over the years. It will make them less comfortable about ringing up about an issue, talking to someone they don't actually know. To the CEO, it might be a little bit intimidating. But if you vote for the officer recommendation and not this, you will be voting to get rid of your powers and get rid of the representative nature of what you do and the powers given to the community through us as elected representatives. Councillors, this is a very serious matter. I particularly don't even like Councillor Johnson's motion in respect of the giving up any powers in terms of the Tender Review Committee, but I'm going to vote for this anyway. I don't like it, but I need to support his motion, I believe, because we need to get something across the line, otherwise we could end up with the officer's recommendation. I do like the fact that it's only 3 months. I don't like to give any of these powers away. I would have thrown the whole thing out in my view, and unfortunately I didn't get that alternate motion in early enough to do that. However, I will support this motion because it mostly throws out the idea of getting rid of or delegating all of our powers to the CEO. That is not what our ratepayers want to see. And if you look around us now, we're operating as a council. We're all reading our emails. We can see what's before us. We don't need to go to a situation where we only give it to 2 or 3, maybe 4 councillors. We can all read something that might be happening in the community and have a say in it. Don't give away your powers, councillors, because it just says to the community, I don't want to do my job. I don't want to do my job. We are capable of making decisions, and it is our job to sit here and make decisions. It is our job to sit at home. It is councillors' jobs to sit at home via Zoom or whatever and to make decisions and read emails. We aren't at the stage where we have to hand over everything. We can meet here. Look around you. We are meeting. We've got good social distance. Let's agree to Councillor Johnson's motion and review it in 3 months, and let's go forward from there, because nobody wants you to give away your power. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Coley. Speaker against the motion? Any speakers for or against the motion? Councillor Lucas.
As quickly as I can, I'll be supporting. I won't be supporting the current motion. I'll be supporting Councillor Henderson's proposed or foreshadowed motion, mainly because it refers back to the ward councillors, and if the ward councillors can't agree, then the whole planning item comes back to full council. So I've got no issue with that. The ward councillors, as he says in one of his reasons, may be aware of issues that are contentious to the local area that the city officers or the CEO is not aware of. So we can still be involved, but it can also streamline a lot of other processes. So can't support Councillor Johnson's, but I'll be supporting Councillor Henderson's if this is defeated. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lucas. Any further speakers? Councillor Congerton.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, I just want to reiterate the fact I will be supporting Councillor Henderson's as well. I think it offers a good resolve to all of the issues to do with the tender and also for planning. And I would just like to say to some people in the room, the word's hysterical. I can't see any hysterical person here. Democracy, I hope that word continues, because in this democracy, in this chamber, if we vote for something and the numbers are, by democracy, voted for or against, that's where it should end and not continue for as long as it wishes to continue externally. And when you talk about categorically, Councillor Johnson, 3 people in the back of the folder sent deputations in. That doesn't represent to me categorically either.
Thank you, Councillor Congerton. Any further speakers? Councillor Johnson, your right of reply. Close debate. Thank you.
I suggest you put it to the vote, Mr Mayor.
Okay. Those in favour of the motion? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Those are Councillor Johnson, Councillor Kiley, Councillor Catalano, Councillor Richardson, Councillor Scanlon and Councillor Podolnik. All the rest are against, so therefore the motion fails. Councillor Henderson. Okay, just hold 1-5. We've lost Kim Lay, so we just might try and get her back on the line. Amanda, does it matter if we...
Can we... No, I don't want to win the clerk, Mr Mayor.
Okay.
Just wait for this.
You right?
Finish before I come back.
Councillor Henderson.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, I move that Council resolve 2. 1. Adopt the following additional delegations until such time as the state of emergency has been lifted. A. increase the CEO's delegation from 300,000 to 1 million to accept or decline tenders and adjust the tenders review committee delegation accordingly. B, all statutory planning decisions subject to the following processes being followed. 1, the intention to make a decision beyond the limits of the existing delegation made 5th of June 2019 is to be referred to the councillors within the ward to which the proposed decision pertains. 2, the ward councillors have 7 days from the date of notification of the CEO's intention to exercise the delegation to object in writing to the exercise of the delegation. 3, where a majority of, in brackets, ward councillors object to the intention of the CEO to exercise the delegation, the CEO is to refer the matter to the council for determination. And 4, where the CEO has effected the delegation, notice of the decision to be posted on the city's website within 7 days of the date of the decision. Number 2, record the reason for changing officer's recommendation is 1, that the delegation is only necessary in response to the COVID-19 pandemic and should be limited to the period where a state of emergency is in place. 2, that ward councillors may be aware of contentious matters contained within a development application that city officers are not aware of. 3, 7 days will allow ward councillors to consult with constituents without unnecessary delay to the application.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson. Seconder, Councillor Parry. Do you against?
Amendment.
We'll hear your amendment.
Mayor, under add point 5, where there is a controversial or contentious issue having been identified, the CEO is to gain the input of the whole council.
Well, Councillor Henderson shaking his head, but I thought a contentious issue, the ward councillors would have sent it to council.
Yeah.
As per the recommendation, if it's contentious, the ward councillors would say so and send it to council. Well, it's not acceptable to the mover, so Councillor McNamara.
It's for the whoever, either Mr. Chan or the CEO, whichever. With regard to the majority of ward councillors objecting or agreeing to a particular development or application, what if the ward councillors, for instance, in the Ballajora case, if it's a situation where
And under what you say?
John, touch the microphone on it. And just lean forward a little bit.
Turn it on.
That's it.
Is that better?
Yeah, they haven't trouble hearing
better.
it.
Right. So basically, in the case of Ballajora, there's 2 ward councillors living in a particular area, and if there's a development coming up within that area that the other councillor has serious objections to or serious support for, just because those 2 councillors live in the area and agree with the individual community people that's there. I'm just giving this as an example. Then that particular issue should come back to the CEO to bring to council, rather than so if it's obvious that there is I suppose bias, if they want to use a better word, from the majority of the councillors.
Question?
The question is, should it come back to the CEO if it is obvious that there's bias with regard to any decision by councillors?
Mr. CEO, might you answer?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, under 3, under 1B3, it's a majority.
That's why I'm objecting, Mr. Mayor.
Well, that's fine. That's an objection.
And that's why I asked the question.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't get it up, John?
Wouldn't get that. No, that's fine.
Question, another question, similar question, and that is, what if you've only got 2 ward councils in your ward, then how do you know if you've got a majority?
2 is a majority.
But what if 1 votes and 1 does not?
Well,
Send it to council. Send it to council.
Yep.
Don't need to make it too complicated. Okay.
Just majority.
So I had a mover. I have a seconder. Is there anyone against?
The amendment we're considering.
Yes, the amendment.
Oh, okay, so I've got a mover and a...
You ruled against the amendment.
Well, no, I didn't really rule against it, but given that it's already covered in 3, I thought Councillor Coley might leave that amendment go because it's almost the same as it's covered by 3.
It's somewhat different, Mayor. It's the point 3 refers it to the ward councillors, whereas point 5 that I'm proposing would refer identified controversial contentious issues to the whole of council.
Well, Mr Mayor, that would have to change item B2 and B3. And B1 for that matter too, Mr Mayor.
Explain why he's putting that forward.
If you like, with your permission, Mayor.
Well, I think we just need to work out if we have to change the whole motion. Is that then contrary to the original motion?
And Mr Mayor, you then have to define contentious.
Well, I think it's a little bit open, Councillor Coley.
Well, can I change the amendment, Mayor, to where, although it's been seconded, so potentially can't.
Wipe it out.
I need to remove that, and I'll propose another if you don't mind.
Okay, we'll just remove the previous amendment.
Yep.
Where there have been 10 or more submissions in objection to a proposal, the issue should be given to all councillors for consideration.
Submissions or objections, Mr Mayor? Submissions or objections?
Submissions or objections, they're different.
Objections.
Yeah, question, Councillor Catalano.
So how would people know that it's coming up for council?
Still be advertised. Still be an agenda. Well, they'll be advertised as part of the process.
Yeah.
But what comes to council will come to council.
Yeah.
Okay.
You don't have Catalano as a seconder there. So you need a second if you're going to go ahead with that.
Well, yeah, okay, so, well, Councillor Henderson, you're shaking your head, I guess. So it's not acceptable for the mover or the second. I'm inclined to think that too, so, but Councillor Coley, you still want to go ahead with this in some way, shape or form?
No, you haven't, no.
Yes, I'd still like to propose that amendment, Mayor.
Okay, and Councillor Catalano is going to second it.
So that'd be 5, Mr Mayor, is it?
Sorry?
That'd be a 5, B5.
B5, yep.
B5.
Okay, we've got that up on the screen.
Yep.
Councillor Henderson, you're right for you against. So Councillor Kylie. Councillor Congleton.
My question would be, in what form would you take the objection? Telephone, email, written? What is it?
It's normally written submissions, Councillor.
Well, the word, sorry, Mr CEO, the word doesn't say submission, it says objection. So I can understand 10 or more written submissions, I can understand, but I can't understand just the word objection.
I'll change it to written objections then.
As part of the consultation process.
Okay, that's up there now. So you still not happy with that one, Councillor Henderson, as it is? But we have a mover and a second for that. And there's one against, so Councillor Kylie.
Councillors, I don't agree with giving away any power. As I said in my previous speech, I will actually be voting against this whole motion, even if I get this amendment up. I don't want to give away any power to that's there, but I want this amendment to go in in case it does get up. I will be foreshadowing a refusal of any council recommendation or on this whole item, and I know there's not an option 2 to refuse the whole item, but I foreshadow that if this motion fails. And there are issues, councillors, that come up in other wards, and there that are contentious, and it often requires councillors from other wards to come in and support you in what you are doing in your ward to fight against something that you don't necessarily agree with, but maybe the majority of ward councillors do actually support it. I can give some examples. There might be some developments in the Bullsbrook area that are coming up and are very contentious. There might be people in the area who might want to talk to councillors from other wards to get support. There was we had last week, we had the Henley Brook Structure Plan, where I spoke a lot to the local residents who wanted my support, and I'm not a ward councillor. They wanted my support on this, and what you're doing is you're taking away my power. By voting for this, you're taking away my power, and I object wholeheartedly against this motion by taking away other councillors' powers. Councillors, you don't know when you're going to have the need to speak on an issue. You might be rung up by somebody that you know out of the ward, and they might say, listen, councillor, can you help me on this, because my ward councillors think it's a fait accompli and it's just going to go ahead. So I encourage you, don't give away your powers. We are working as a council. Reject Councillor Henderson's motion and support a refusal of anything on this item, as I foreshadowed, if this motion fails. Thank you.
Councillor Catalano.
Yes, thank you. I think this amendment just gives ratepayers who want to make a submission in objection the opportunity to be heard by more councillors other than just the 3 or 2 or 4 ward councillors. So it just gives their objection a greater voice, and I'm in support of that.
Thank you. Councillor Henderson, do you wish to speak against it?
Just briefly, thanks, Mayor. I think the important consideration here is that if, for instance, I receive a phone call from someone in Bullsbrook, or an email or a text, which I have, by the way, the first thing I'd do is I'd pick up the phone to the Mayor and Councillor Jones and the other councillors in the ward, say, I think we have a problem and we need to look at how to address this. I think ward councillors are really attuned to what's happening in their ward. And if something comes up that needs council oversight, I would expect those councillors to pick up the phone to the CEO and say, Mike, we have a problem here. Can we bring this one to full council? Now, it's as simple as that. What I'm effectively saying is that I believe that councillors do have a responsibility in their ward. They are elected in their ward. We have a responsibility also to get on with things. That's one of the reasons this is happening, is to try and expedite. Because one of the complaints I get regularly is that it takes so long to get things through the council process. And when you add, in Swan Valley Ward in particular, extra requirements for the Swan Valley Planning Act, it can take months and months to get things done. I'm hoping that this process will speed things up. But I'm also hoping that we'll all cooperate together and we'll all work together across wards to support each other during this difficult time to get things done. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson. Speaker in favour of the amendment? Speaker against the amendment? Speaker against the amendment, Councillor.
Yep, that's right, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I can understand what Councillor Kiley is trying to achieve here, but by adding this as part 5, what we're doing is turning a process into something that's half process, half criteria. Councillors, I'd like to foreshadow an amendment which achieves much the same thing, but which retains a process. So that's why I'm voting against this, and I'm going to propose another amendment which will become clear shortly. Thank you.
A speaker for the amendment? Any other speakers for or against? Councillor Scanlon, I saw your hand up there a little while ago. You wish to speak? No? No. Okay, in that case, Councillor Kiley, close the debate, please.
Mayor, I'll just make one point here. Councillors, it's all good and well that we hold hands and get on and work together, but it hasn't been so in the past, and I don't think it'll be in the future. Councillor Henderson's idea that we're all going to work together doesn't necessarily work when it comes to planning issues. Nothing personal, this is business. We have a job to do. Don't give away your powers. If Councillor Henderson gets phoned up by somebody in Bullsbrook and says, and he tells them, look, it's actually in the hands of the Bullsbrook councillors, I can do nothing, and they'll say, well, why is that? And Councillor Henderson will have to tell them that he voted to give away his powers to the Bullsbrook councillors. This is effectively what would be happening. So don't do that. Don't put yourself in that situation where you're going to have to tell a ratepayer, I'm sorry, I can't help you because I voted to give up my powers to help you. Simple as that.
Thank you. Councillors, those in favour? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's Councillor Kiley, Councillor Catalano, Councillor Richardson, Councillor Scanlon and Councillor Prodovnik for the amendment. All the rest are against. Amendment fails. 10-5. Councillor Johnson, you foreshadowed another amendment.
Amendment, Mr Mayor, if we could get the motion up on the screen. What I'm proposing to do, Mr Mayor, is in part 1B1 to delete the words within the ward to which the proposed decision pertains. So that final section. So B1, delete the words within the ward to which the proposed decision pertains. That's right, just delete that. I'll go slowly, Mr Mayor, so the minute clerk can keep up with me. And then in part B2, delete the word ward. Oh, yeah, minute clerk's ahead of me, here's what I'm doing. And then in part 3, I wish to add at the end of part 3, or where 5 councillors object to the intention of the CEO to exercise the delegation, etc.
Okay, Councillor Henderson, the move of the initial motion.
I think it takes away from the intention, Mr Mayor, so I can see where Councillor Johnson's going with this, but I don't know. Need a second, Mr Mayor.
Okay, in that case, it does need a seconder. Councillor Kiley. Councillor Johnson.
Is anyone against? Okay. Councillors, what I'm trying to achieve here is to retain Councillor Henderson's concept of a process and to add in additional information to all councillors and also to add in an additional criteria. So I'm retaining Councillor Henderson's existing criteria of the ward councillors, so that continues to stand, but I'm adding an additional trigger, and that is where 5 councillors object. Now, councillors, it is almost identical to our JDAP trigger pulling situation. So this is something we already do for JDAPs. What it will mean is that we are now doing it for statutory planning applications and reports where the CEO has delegated authority. So, councillors, it takes nothing away from Councillor Henderson's motion, and it adds something to it and makes it more flexible and gives the whole of council the opportunity to pull that trigger to say, yes, I want to see that come to council. So it's similar to the number 5, the magic number 5, which is needed for JDAPs. That number 5 is needed for revocation motions. That number 5 is also needed for calling a special meeting of council. So that's where the number 5 came from. So, councillors, I'd urge you to support this one. Thank you.
Councillor Kiley is the seconder.
Councillors, again, this gives you the opportunity to step in where you're needed, where your ratepayers want you to act. I need to ask a question through you, Mayor, if I can. I want to ask about the. I'll probably wait until this is discussed, but I want to ask about the oath that we as councillors take in terms of representing the whole of the City of Swan, and whether this whole motion is contrary to the oath that we've taken to represent the whole of the City of Swan. You're actually going against your oath by voting for this. This is contrary to the oath that you have taken.
Yep. Councillor McCulloch, you had a point of order.
Sorry, I object to being told that it's going against my oath as to, and if Councillor Kiley could speak to the chair as well. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't believe it's contrary to oath, councillors, because it says you will represent the ratepayers within the city. So to answer your question, which you asked, I don't believe it's against the oath. I don't think the CEO does either.
I would possibly take that up with you at a later time, Mayor, but I'll speak to the amendment initially. This gives councillors the opportunity to step in where you are needed. Councillors, don't throw your authority away. You haven't been voted to throw your authority away.
Okay, thank you. Speaker against the amendment. Councillor Henderson.
I'll try and be brief. Councillors, you may recall, if we step back all the way, the proposal was that we had no input whatsoever during this emergency period and that staff would get on with it. And in fact, that's what the state has asked us to do. They've asked us to get on with it. The proposal that I've put in place is to protect the residents by having at least their local councillor who knows what's going on the ground, I trust, because if we don't, we're in trouble. Hopefully we do have a handle on that. It's not about taking away anyone's right. It's about ensuring that the people that elected you in that area are being heard. As I said, that was proposed to be taken away completely during this period. So this is the process that I've proposed, is to speed it up. Whereas, regrettably, Councillor Johnson, whilst I understand where you're heading with this. This expands it more widely, and potentially it slows the process down again. Mosquitoes are big in this place. I think if we stick with the original intent, we have good coverage and we'll get democracy in place. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson. Another speaker for the amendment. Speaker against the amendment, Councillor Congerton.
Respectfully, councillors, if we approve this amendment, we are basically sitting in the chamber doing planning meetings and approvals as per normal. Because I can guarantee you right now, standing here, you will always get 5. Always. Always. We nearly always get 6. We nearly always get 9. And we will get 5. So I'm now of the opinion is throw it out with the bathwater and the officer's recommendation. Let's just go back to normal, because this is going to go round and round a room all night long and we're not going to achieve anything.
Thank you, Councillor Congerton. Any further speakers for or against?
Just a question, Mayor. I was wondering if any councillors are prepared to give up the equivalent proportion of their councillor income in accordance with how much power they're giving up.
No, I'm not taking that question. It's a frivolous question. Any speakers for or against? Being none, Councillor Johnson, you close the debate, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, councillors, we all know we represent the whole of the city. It is absolutely acceptable and part of our role as a council to councillors to look at what's going on in different wards. We're a citywide councillor. We may be elected from one ward, but we elect the whole city. And that is my reason for changing this, for proposing this amendment, is to make this ability to object to the delegation a council-wide thing. Any councillor should be able to object. Councillor, God blimey, I've forgotten his name now. Congerton has pointed out, yeah, I got you there. We'll always get 5. Well, maybe you will always get 5. But sometimes you don't on those JDAP applications. It doesn't happen every single time. Not everybody's interested in everything, so I think it won't always happen. Sorry?
Yeah, 1 minute.
Got 1 minute. And that brings me to my final point, Mr. Mayor. Get on with it. We are supposed to get on with it. The Minister has said get on with it, keep making decisions, and that's what this is about. I think this would be a vastly improved process, and it would be a wonderful experiment to try it out. So, councillors, I urge you to vote for this new improved process. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Councillors, those in favour of the amendment? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those are Councillor Scanlon, Richardson, Catalano, Kiley and Johnson. The rest are against. It fails. Brings us back to substantive motion. Councillors, we have done this to death. I don't think we need to do any more. Councillor Henderson, do you wish to speak further?
I actually haven't spoken to the motion yet, have I?
No. You can briefly speak to it, but this...
Thank you.
If there's any way, you've got a seconder. We've done it to death, I think, Councillor, so I'm more than happy to put it straight to vote.
Okay, look, I think we have done it to death, so let's put it to the vote.
Okay. Those in favour of the motion? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Those against? 9, 10. Councillor Scanlon. So, Councillor Scanlon, Councillor Podovnik, Councillor Richard, you're in favour of that motion. Was that correct? Yep. Okay. Yeah. So, those against? Councillor Kiley. So, I'm just asking for those councillors against the motion. Councillor Kiley, Councillor Scanlon and Councillor McNamara are against. Okay. Motion is carried. Okay, I'll ask you again. Councillors against the motion. The substantive motion. Councillor Henderson's motion. Okay, so I have Councillor Catalano, Councillor Kiley and Councillor McNamara are against. So all the rest are for, so it's therefore carried. Takes us now to policy review, item 3, a procurement and a motion from Councillor Kiley.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, I propose that Council resolve to 1, adopt the revised policy C116 procurement for a period of 12 months instead of 6, concluding 15th of April 2021 with the exception of the tender threshold, which will remain at $250,000. The other change to the officer's recommendation was 3, authorise the CEO to request the Minister for Local Government to allow metropolitan local authorities to give preference to tenderers which are located within the City of Swan as long as the tenderer meets the requirements of the tender specification and are within the top 2 of an overall marginal cost benefit rating of the valid tender submissions received. 4, officers will undertake to seek quotations for work as normal, but be encouraged to invite organisations located within the city boundaries, where possible, to submit quotes. Note that quotation process A, which will permit city officers to invite one supplier only, whereas quotation process B and C will require the city officers to invite 2 suppliers. Local suppliers will be given preference as long as the quality is considered of an equivalent standard. Point 5, evaluation panels will be reduced from 3 officers to 2 officers for written quotation process C. The level of detail within reports will be lessened with written quotation process C, but must rank all quotations with respect to quality, cost and overall rank. 6, officers will be requested to complete declarations of interest to manage any risk of a conflict of interest. 7, an independent person must be appointed to act as a probity advisor on any contract over $2 million. Record the reason for changing the officer's recommendation is that it will reduce the time between inviting quotations to engagement of a contractor and reduce the number of staff required to undertake the evaluation, ensure greater oversight and increase the period of these measures being in place to further assist the local economy into 2021.
Have a seconder. Councillor Lucas. Is there anyone against? Question, Councillor Congerton.
On item 6, can I just ask the council staff of the current declaration that's in place?
Mr. CEO. Ms. Albright.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So where a city officer has a potential conflict of interest, they're required to raise that with their manager. That would be the process if we were doing a direct a direct purchase. In processes where staff members are part of an evaluation panel, there is actually a form that they have to fill out to declare any interest that they have, and if they have an interest, they generally would not participate as part of their decision making.
Thank you, Ms Albright. Okay. I have a mover and a second. Is anyone against?
I wish to make an amendment, Mr Mayor. I'll ask just ask one,
Okay,
please.
a question or an amendment?
Question. Oh, sorry,
Okay,
amendment.
question.
Sorry. Can we please remove number 7? An independent person must be appointed to act as a probity advisor on any contract over $2 million. And the reason why is because, I'll read a quote, accounting firms tend to get much of the work as they charge much lower rates than legal firms. Rates can vary between $200 and $1,000 per hour.
Well,
It's a fair chunk of change.
Can I answer that, Mayor?
Well, hang on. Councillor Parry, the probity officer already exists for the excess of contracts over $2 million, so it's already in place. It's already there. Okay.
It is actually a decision of the CEO to appoint the probity officer, but I believe CEO
It's already exists.
does it in all cases anyway, over $2 million.
Then I'll withdraw. Already exists.
Thank
you. Councillors, I have no one against the motion. In that case, declare the motion carried. That, councillors, takes us to item 4, donations of council meeting meals. Councillor Congerton.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The motion is that Council resolve to suspend council meeting meals until such time as the state government lifts social distancing restrictions and council meetings resume as normal, and advise Ultimo catering accordingly. And number 2, the reason for changing the officer's recommendation is that the contract between the city and Ultimo Catering allows for services to be suspended without causing a breach of the contract. Unspent funds can be redirected to other community services and activities.
We have a seconder. Councillor Henderson. Is there anyone against? Councillor Johnson, do we wish to debate it?
Yes.
You do. Okay. Councillor Congerton.
Actually, I can't wait for the debate, Mr Mayor. It is why you'd oppose it, or God knows. The reason for this resolution is that there have been instances recently where some of the food that has been distributed has gone off, and we can't be in a position as a council to allow food to be distributed via a third party and be possible to be involved in litigation if someone got sick. And also, when you look at the wastage, why would we want to have a look at any wastage component to this? And we could far better, as we've said tonight, apply these funds in other ways to the community.
Thank you. Councillor Henderson is the seconder.
It's covered, I think, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Johnson.
Yeah, look, Mayor, this one's fairly straightforward. I'm absolutely astounded by this motion. Councillors, we've got a contract with Ultimo Catering, and people working in the catering business right now are people who are most impacted by this COVID economic crisis we're facing. And secondly, as several councillors saw tonight, including myself, there are people standing by the road asking for work. They obviously haven't got any money to even buy food. Councillors, some people are really seriously affected by this crisis. So I think it's reasonable to allow Ultimo Catering to continue with their contract in order to support Ultimo Catering. And secondly, we can give the food to people who need it. And there are plenty of people out there right now who really don't have anything. So, councillors, to me, it was an obvious motion. I'm right behind it.
Okay. The Speaker for the motion. Speaker against. Speakers either way. The councillors put the vote. Those in favour. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Those. You got one against?
Councillor 13. Yep, 13.
Yep.
13-1. Councillor Zanino's out of the room.
Yep, 13-1. Councillor Zanino's out of the room. Get that carried. Okay, that takes care of all the items in Part B, with the exception of item 5, which is commencement of meeting times.
I'm against it, Mr Mayor.
Yeah, well, said you were going to do something with it, so that's why I'm looking at you, Councillor Henderson. It's Councillor Johnson. But as well, do you? Okay, all right, so it's actually 2 against. Okay, thank you. Thank you, councillors. Councillor John, you got an alternative to number 5?
I'm just opposed to it.
Is that okay? In that case, can I put it to vote? Those in favour? The meeting starting at 5:30.
Mr Mayor, don't I get to speak to it?
Well, you didn't move a motion. You just said opposed to it.
Well, in that case, Mr Mayor, I'll move a motion to continue at 6 p.m. as an alternate motion.
So who's the seconder? Councillor Kiley. You're against it. We're at item 5, page 64. The commencement time to council meetings. Okay. Who's your seconder? Councillor Kiley. Councillor Johnson. There are councillors against, so off you go.
Okay, thank you, Mr Mayor. Some councillors may not be aware that changing meeting times to 6 p.m. was an outcome of a very long community campaign. So we had, this was something that was raised at special electors meetings. I think the campaign went on for something like 5 years before we managed to change the meeting time to 6 p.m. and to get a satisfactory time and process that met expectations of the community and the councillors. So I was very pleased with it. The reason 6 p.m. is important is that many people who work on a 9 to 5 basis find it very hard to either attend a meeting at 5:30 or to watch the live streaming, because most likely they're either still at work or driving home from work. That has not changed. So there's no change whatsoever. I work the same hours, and I'm sure Councillor Parry's left the room. I'm sure he's working the same hours. Other people out there in the community are working the same hours. They're either in their existing workplace or they are working from home. So councillors, doesn't make any difference. Those of us who are still in work still have the same issue that 5:30 is a very bad time. And since we moved to 6 p.m, we've seen an awful lot more. We've seen a significant increase, I believe, in community participation, which I think is definitely a good thing. Now, you can say, well, councillors, we can use the live streaming. I say, well, not when you're driving, you can't. We don't want to encourage that kind of thing. And secondly, councillors, I think particularly councillors who are not around at the time of this debate, there is another reason why 6 p.m. is a better time, or even later, is a better time than 5:30 p.m. It is very challenging for working councillors to get to this chamber for 5:30 p.m. Now, I'm not talking about me or other working councillors such as Councillor Parry, because I personally don't have a problem anymore getting here at 5:30 because I only live 5 minutes away. The issue is that in normal times, 5:30 p.m. is enough to put candidates off, because many people will see that they cannot possibly get to the meeting for 5:30 p.m. because of the demands of their job. It was reducing the candidate pool. And I can tell you, councillors, some of you have heard this argument from me before, that I personally, when I was elected, I remember coming to my first meeting with great trepidation, thinking, what's going to happen to me at work when now I have to leave work at 4:30 to get here? But fortunately, my employers were quite understanding. Many candidates, potential candidates for council, would be put off by a 5:30 p.m. start time. Now, I know it's only an emergency, but I can't see why an emergency is a reason to change the meeting time. Now, councillors, another point, less significant point, is this. Is moving the meeting time to 5:30 going to give people new jobs? Is it going to assist people with any health crises that they may be facing? I think not. I think this is a completely spurious motion. And out there in the community, people expect us to stick with 6 p.m. They campaigned long and hard for it. And changing the meeting times around for no good reason is just causing confusion. For instance, I understand on the city's website tonight, this meeting was advertised for 6 p.m. So lots of people missed the beginning of it. Councillors, let's keep our meetings at 6 p.m. because that, I believe, is a good time. And perhaps in the future we can look at moving them to 6:30 p.m. So, councillors, please vote for my alternate motion to retain meeting times at 6 p.m. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Kiley.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, this change is going to cost the ratepayer money, and I look around the room now and I've counted 5 councillors that have young children, I believe, and might be in a position where they have to get a babysitter. And they can't, it might be only, they might have to get a babysitter for only half an hour, but we don't pay them for half an hour. We pay them for a minimum of 2 hours, which at a rate of $30, I believe, is the going rate. We are looking at 5 times $60, which is $300. This change will cost the ratepayer $300 every meeting. So I'm proposing that we don't go ahead with this. Any saving we can make at the moment, that's a good move. We're giving mixed messages to the community as well. We need to be consistent. There's been enough change and upheaval in people's lives at the moment. It doesn't allow people to get to see the meeting. They're getting used to 6 o'clock. It's a much better time. Personally, I would have to employ a babysitter to ensure that I could hand over to somebody before my wife came home to look after the children. So it's going to cost us money. It's not necessary. We're doing well at 6 o'clock, and it's an expectation of the community that we start at 6 now. So please support a refusal of this and the alternate motion. Or
Speaker for the motion? Against the motion? Any speakers for or against? Councillor Lucas.
Speaking against, item 1 clearly states this is for the duration of the state of emergency. So I support it because we don't have members of the public coming in at all. So whether it's 5:30 or 6, that's a non-consideration. The main reason, I think, is the safe and health for our staff who work. And as we're no longer being provided with a meal between that 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. break period, I haven't had an evening meal yet. I brought along some biscuits, which I'm happy to share for anyone who's a bit hungry. And bearing in mind, we've been going for 2 hours and 50 minutes. Sorry, hour 45. We started at 5:30 tonight. That's my clock's playing up. So during only the period of emergency and the other details listed in item 2 and 3, I've got no issue at commencing at 5:30. I won't go into the number of people who watch on live stream. They can be at home watching it at 5:30 just as easily as they can at 6 o'clock. If they're travelling, if they miss the first part, if they're travelling by train or on public transport, they can dial it up on their iPad or their phone and still join in the fun. So I think for the time being, while this state of emergency is on, I believe a 5:30 is better suited. It means people can get home at an earlier time and actually spend more time with their family. Thank you.
Thank you, councillors. Any further speakers? Councillor Johnson, close the debate, please.
Yes, we put it to the vote, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Those in favour? 1, 2, 3. Where's the fourth one?
Councillor Podovnik.
Councillor Podovnik, so that's 4. So the rest are against. So that is Councillor Johnson, Councillor.
Hang on. That's not right.
Well, okay. Well, we just moved. I asked for councillors in favour of Councillor Johnson's motion. I only had 4 hands go up. Okay, so go back. No, we're voting. We're voting. So an alternate motion from Councillor Johnson. I asked councillors in favour of the motion. So, do you want to do it again? Those in favour. Okay, that's Councillor Podovnik, Scanlon, Richardson, Catalano, Kiley, and Johnson. The rest are against. The motion fails. Councillor Lucas is moving the officer's recommendation. We have a seconder, and Councillor Parry. Is there anyone against? Do we really wish to debate it, councillors? I don't think so. Okay, put a vote. Those in favour? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 is 9. Those against? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep. There's a 6 against. It's Councillor Johnson, Kiley, Catalano, Richardson, Scanlon, and Podovnik. Motion's carried. Okay, councillors, that takes care of everything in Part B. I now need a motion to go behind closed doors. Moved Councillor Parry, seconded Councillor Congerton. We now go behind closed doors. Thank you for your efforts. Thank you to the staff for the great. And we look forward to a budget that I hope is going to be daring and take City of Swan out of this economic slump and set us up for the future. Thank you, councillors.